In 1788, the Constitution of the United States was ratified, and George Washington was selected as the first President of the United States, taking his first oath of office in an inaugural ceremony on April 30th, 1789.
It was held in New York City, with the presidential oath administered on the balcony of Federal Hall on Wall Street. With no Supreme Court judges yet appointed, Washington's oath was administered by New York's highest-ranking judge, as Vice President John Adams, senators and representatives crowded on the balcony, overlooking cheering crowds.
It's not a constitutional requirement, but no one remembered to bring a Bible for the ceremony. A messenger was quickly sent, and Washington took his oath on a Bible borrowed from a Masonic lodge, and in the haste of the moment, randomly opened to Genesis 49:13.
Nearing the end of a bloody and tragic Civil War, Abraham Lincoln delivered one of his most famous speeches, his second inaugural address, on March 4, 1865, quoting from the Gospels and Psalm 19.
But let us judge not, that we be not judged. The Almighty has His own purposes. Fervently do we pray that this mighty scourge of war may speedily pass away. Yet if God wills that it continue, and until every drop of blood drawn with the lash shall be paid by another, so still it must be said, the judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. In a war that would end just months later, on May 9th, 1865. On January 20th, 1945, Franklin Delano Roosevelt was inaugurated for an unprecedented fourth term as president. Just 83 days later, on April 12th, radio programs across the country were interrupted.
Over the White House at Washington, the flag flies at half-staff as a grief-stricken nation mourns the death of Franklin Delano Roosevelt, President of the United States. Inside, in the historic Cabinet Room, Vice President Harry S. Truman takes the oath of office as President.
And Vice President Harry S. Truman became the nation's 33rd president.
In 1949, for his second oath of office, President Truman's hand rested on two Bibles, one used at his first swearing-in ceremony open to the Beatitudes in Matthew 5, and a copy of the Gutenberg Bible, open to the Ten Commandments in Exodus chapter 20.
Engage with the Bible in its influence in the history of a nation.
I, Dwight D Eisenhower, do solemnly swear.
In 1957, President Dwight D Eisenhower took the oath of office twice. January 20th was a Sunday, so the first ceremony was private in the White House, and the oath repeated the next day at the Capitol.
Although at his first inaugural, Eisenhower took the oath of office on George Washington's Bible of 1789 and his own West Point Bible. In 1957, he chose only the West Point Bible, open to Psalm 33:12.
Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord, the people He has chosen as His own inheritance.
In his State of the Union speech later that January, President Eisenhower referred to the Ten Commandments, saying, "These commandments of God are a stronghold of moral purpose for men everywhere."
On January 20th, 1961, John F. Kennedy became the 35th President of the United States. Without question, his most famous speech inspiring a nation was his inaugural address.
So, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
He was assassinated on November 22nd, 1963, after only 1,037 days as president. And in closing his speech, a call to endurance for the American people from Romans 12:12.
Year in and year out, rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, a struggle against the common enemies of man, tyranny, poverty, disease, and war itself.
My fellow countrymen, on this occasion, the oath I have taken before you and before God.
On January 20, 1965, Lyndon Johnson took the oath of office for his first full term as president, having served as president after the assassination of President Kennedy.
And for the first time, a president's wife held the Bible for the swearing-in ceremony, a Bible given to him from his mother.
President Johnson, in his speech, called for the nation to unite toward a common goal. He concluded with a quote from 2 Chronicles 1:10.
Give me now wisdom and knowledge, that I may go out and come in before this people. For who can judge this, thy people, that is so great?
Defeating Gerald Ford in the run for president, Governor Jimmy Carter took the oath of office on January 20, 1977, administered by Chief Justice Warren Burger.
Governor Carter, would you place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right hand? And
one of the Bibles selected by President Carter was George Washington's Bible. Referring to it in his speech, President Carter said,
Here before me is a Bible used in the inauguration of our first president in 1789. And I have just taken the oath of office on the Bible my mother gave me just a few years ago, open to a timeless admonition from the ancient prophet Micah. He has showed thee, O man, what is good, and what doth the Lord require of thee, but to do justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God.
At a news conference shortly after his 1985 inauguration, Ronald Reagan said,
The Bible contains an answer to just about everything and every problem that confronts us, and I wonder sometimes why we don't recognize that one book could solve a lot of problems for us.
For both his 1981 and 1985 inaugural oaths, Ronald Reagan used the King James Bible belonging to his mother, Nellie Wilson Reagan, on both occasions opened to 2 Chronicles 7:14, to a passage beginning with, If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves.
President Reagan spoke fondly of her many margin notes and underlined passages in a 1983 Mother's Day tribute, saying, My mother Nellie made all those marks in that book.
Engage with the Bible, with this book of all books.
I, Barack Hussein Obama, do solemnly swear.
Did you know there's no constitutional requirement that a Bible be used in taking the oath of office? But President Obama used 3 Bibles for his second inaugural in 2013.
January 20th fell on Sunday that year, so he was officially sworn in at the White House, using a Bible belonging to Michelle Obama's grandmother.
At the public ceremony the next day, the president used 2 significant Bibles, the Lincoln Bible and Martin Luther King's Traveling Bible, to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington in 1963. Where King quoted a number of biblical passages in his famous I Have a Dream speech, including Amos 5:24.
We will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream.
Engage with the Bible, this book of all books.
Brought to you by Museum of the Bible.
Father, we won't fall. You will never